The 10 Sefirot are the kind of Kabbalistic map of reality, of every corner and aspect of reality can be. Let's see, it's a basic unit of reality. And the 10 Sefirot are the 10 channels of divine flow and expression into creation. Mm-hmm. There are 10 Sefirot and 22 connecting pathways that are the map of the connectors between us in the physical world and the spiritual realms. And so there are the first three Sefirot are the Sefirot of mind or consciousness. And the lower Sefirot down here are the Sefirot of emotions and called Midot. And the idea is that every soul in the universe is connected and rooted in one or another of these Sefirot. And if we knew which Sefirah our soul is rooted in, it would give us some guidance and information about what our mission is and what our work is in the world.
Is there a way to know?
Well, I think that the best way to know is to really kind of get a sense of what drives you, what gives you pleasure, what drives you, and then kind of see how it fits, if it fits onto any of these descriptors that I'm going to present.
It'd be really cool to have if you could create a quiz. Like, those online assessments. I don't know if that's possible, but I would definitely feature it if you could.
Well, the truth is, in the homeopathic remedy, there is a kind of materia medica that goes through each sefira and talks about what it looks like when it's too strong and what it looks like when it's too weak, and how it manifests on the emotional, mental, and spiritual planes in both directions. So it actually is a very, I use it as a questionnaire to try to get a sense of where people are rooted and what their work is in the present.
Oh, I may need to do a session with you if you'd be able for that.
Okay. We'll talk. I'm happy to also send you that page. It's kind of you can get a
great. Okay, awesome. Yes, please. All right, continue. So here we have the Sefirot and the 22 connecting pathways.
Right. And so I'm going to just kind of go from above to below and kind of talk about each one of them, and then we can maybe talk about each one ourselves after I say each one or whatever. Okay. So so should I leave the diagram up there, do you think? Or,
for the moment, yeah, I think so.
Okay, so the first one is the Keter, which is the highest of the Sefirot. It's called Roshei Alfei Yisrael, and it literally means the hundreds of the heads of the thousands of Israel. And this is probably the smallest of the soul clusters, and it includes those folks that have attained positions of global power and influence in both the secular and the spiritual realms.
Wow!
Such as the kind of, you could say, the prime minister of Israel, or the rabbis who are informally acknowledged as Gedolei Torah, Poskei Ador,
right,
the great rabbis of the
Rebbe level, right?
Yeah. Or even you could say the heads of APEC or J Street. It's all the people whose decisions and rulings affect the Jewish people on a massive scale, both for better and for worse.
Wow. So this cluster of souls is kind of like, they're super empowered souls, and so I would imagine if they're rectified and aligned with the cosmic mission, they would take us on quantum leaping ahead, and if they're not, they could really hold us back.
Exactly.
So you'd maybe have to say that whoever, if we could, I don't know if we could identify such a person, but whoever's the head of the, let's say, the heads of the mixed multitude of the anti-God factions within the souls of Israel, wow.
Yeah.
Are drawing on intense forces. That's unbelievable.
Right. And so it includes, for sure, the most visible, famous, and celebrated personalities of the generation, but it also includes their hidden counterparts, the hidden tzaddikim, the folks whose prayers and Yehudim are unimaginably potent to affect the destiny of the Jewish people, but it's from the inside out. It's unbeknownst to us. It's unbeknownst to the public. But they also...
Could somebody have that kind of power and not realize it? Or usually they have a feeling?
I think at this point, a person would... I mean, a person does grow into their soul. So I'm sure there are stages of life where they did not realize that this was their root. But as they came into their greatness, I think you'd have to know. Yeah.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. So then the next one is the Chachamim, which means the wise ones, the masters of Hokhmah. But at this level of Chachamim they are mostly hidden, not so much because of modesty, but because they're so out of the box, no one understands what they're doing. They're the geniuses that are engaged in very high abstract Yehudim, like unifications, and pulling down like new lights, or chadash, new paradigms and thought forms that eventually we're going to grow into. There's like a metaphor in science where there are kind of mathematicians who are doing what's called pure math.
Yes.
Meaning they're working with numbers in a totally abstract way, and that has no practical use at the present.
Yeah.
But then at some point, a physicist has a theory that doesn't fit into the present paradigms and discovers a paper by a theoretical mathematician that exactly solves his problem. And suddenly that pure math becomes applied math. It has become totally practical.
That's the one my father was in, so I kind of have
really? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And so it's as below, so above. It's also true in the spiritual realms that there are the kind of esoteric vanguard who you might describe as mystical geeks who are working on levels that the rest of us cannot even conceive of. They're so far ahead of their time.
You wouldn't include yourself in that mystical geek?
Not exactly, no.
Not exactly, but maybe sometimes.
But sure enough, a few generations down the line, and their ideas and paradigms are exactly what the world's looking for, and their teachings are going to become so obvious and familiar that they'll be discussed by the Hamon Am, by the masses at their Shabbos table. Like that's kind of how it works.
Hey, you have this obviously also in the, so you what you're describing is whoever brought the quote unquote law of attraction into the public discourse, even though that's not per se a Torah concept per se in the language that it's generally used for it, but that's where do these new ideas come from? They come from somebody,
right?
Through somebody, I should say, and then there they end up in the world.
Right, exactly.
So you're already describing here also already as kind of a superorganism.
You mean kind of a collective higher?
Yeah, spheros. This map of the spheros is showing up already as collections of soul clusters that are each playing a role in the digestion of divine information until it becomes part of the human.
That is exactly true.
Amazing.
Yeah, beautiful way to say it. Yeah. Okay, then the next level associates with the sphere of Binah, and so it's called the Nevonim, which are the knowers, the visionaries, and really kind of, you could say also masters of faith. Binah is often described as the womb of the mind. It's the visionary that takes the abstract insights from the Chacham, from the previous stage, and gestates them and unpacks their implications and applications and creates a vision of what could and really what will unfold from them. And so the Nevonim, they see and they know and they understand. Nevonim is from understanding, literally the word understanding. So they understand they're the ones that can understand the potential of new light, this Or Chadash that the Chacham has brought down.
So it seems like the Navon, especially with my understanding of from Chabad Hasidus, the Navon would have internalized the light of the Chacham so that it becomes real, and now it's automatically going to be applied in a lot of different ways. Does that fit this? Okay.
Yes, exactly. And there's this quality of being faithful to that vision, like despite all the obstacles that are going to complicate its implementation. Like, having a vision, there's a lot of stages between that and manifestation. So, and it's frustrating, and it takes a lot of work and frustration and obstacles. And so the Navon is is like holds the vision and the faith. And so they could be,
No, I don't want to stop you. I'm just thinking totally. So the Nubbin has to work on him or herself very intensively to get over it. Like many of the obstacles are internal.
Exactly.
Like I thought this was true and then this happened.
Right. And it's a mess. And the fact that there was a failure, does that mean that the message is just don't go, it's not going to work, just, plan B? Or does it mean that you have to overcome that obstacle and keep pushing? It's a very
make new vessels.
Right.
Wow. That's so intense. Wow. Okay.
And so the Nevonim, they might be the entrepreneurs themselves that are kind of taking the vision and making it happen, or they could be really more like the cheerleaders in the sense of getting the dispirited entrepreneur back on the horse after she fails for the umpteenth time. I mean, I know for myself in writing my books, it was really like, it just kind of think, what am I doing? This isn't going to make any sense. No one's going to read this. And it is really important to have people that just say, no, it's good. It's important. You're doing great.
So true.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, certainly as a woman, I needed that very much. Yeah.
I relate to this very much also. Yeah. The passionate connection to a vision that once in a while you say, am I crazy to still believe in this? And then putting, yes, I relate to everything you said extremely intensely.
So the Navon holds the vision and is faithful to that vision that really is important, whether for themselves or for someone else.
So it's very interesting because then that quality of Binah, which we generally shortcut thinking of it as the left brain, or connected, the soul power that's connected to the left brain, which it is, but it's really got to pull things all the way from the highest unseen realms all the way down into the most physical grounded vessels and applications. And as it, in the process of doing that, it's like, it reminds me of like a metadigestive process where certain things come down and then other things get in the way and you have to eliminate this and you have to enhance that. And then you have to go back to the beginning to see what vitamins you have to take till the whole system is rectified through that Navon process. So it can hold the highest light.
Right. And that vision has to kind of be a force behind every stage of the process, like pushing it forward, correcting it, adjusting things. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely right from beginning to end, like you said. Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay, so the next stage relates to the sphere of Hesed, which is loving kindness. And so these are the masters of loving kindness. And these are really the folks that we all think about when we use the term tzaddikim and write books about them. They're the generous of heart that are filling the needs and easing the pain. Yeah, exactly. Comforting the hearts of the community. They dedicate themselves to relieving suffering and aiding the disadvantaged. They donate time, money, goods, love, attention, tending to the physical and spiritual needs of the community.
Wow, that is not me. Not that I don't care about people, but you know what I mean. I think we're relating to each other. Okay, go ahead.
So these are the yes sayers and the selfless volunteers.
Those are the people who have like 50 people eating in their homes for Shabbat, and they're like, they're raising the money for anybody who they heard of that needs the extra pair of glasses or the new oven or the expensive cure or whatever. Nobody should need that, but yeah, wow, this is amazing. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so then there's the Giborim, which relate to the sphere of Gevurah, which are really, you could say, the holy warriors. And they're the zealous ones, the kind of Elijah the prophets among us. They are kind of the wielders of righteous anger, really. And the truth is, as long as evil exists in the world, there is a need for the anger and belligerence, even if our channeling of that energy lacks precision and oftentimes pure intention. Still, in the
Yes.
interim, in this period, it serves a necessary function, and it holds the perpetrators of evil at bay.
It's so interesting. I'm sorry, I can't. Sorry, I'm just excited. That's what I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
It's hard to have a peaceful, like a grounded, polite interview when you keep saying things that make me so excited. You're making me think of somebody. I knew a family, without going into detail, one of the person one of the people from the family, one of the many siblings, told me that her mother had lived in, I guess, Russia. I'm not sure if it was Russia, but someplace like that during a pogrom. And everybody, and the small woman, a small woman, probably 60 years old, whatever, everybody was like in the synagogue praying and saying psalms. And this woman she walked outside and she was standing by the door. No one's getting past her. Like that sounds like that kind of giburim soul in the purest sense, right? Like what makes someone do that? What makes someone, what makes someone fight like that? It's so interesting because these two, the Hasidim and the Giburim, which is Hesed and Gevurah, the two top emotional attributes of the Spheros. What I see in both of them is a quality of Mesiras Nefesh, of like an overriding desire to make something happen, to either give or to protect, that disregards the self. Whereas the Chacham and the Chachamim and the Navonim really aren't in that same. They're kind of like digging into themselves and allowing themselves to connect up or to bring down, but they're in their place. They're not giving up their place for some. It's very interesting. It's very motion. It's a lot of movement there, like, right?
Yes, very, very interesting. I didn't put that together before. Yeah, that is really true. Yeah. And so for these Giborim, the reality is world peace requires the dissolution of evil if it's going to endure. And the challenge is to battle its depravity without also contributing to it. That's the hard part. And so Elijah is a mentor of rectified fury, whose function is to negate that which negates God. And the messianic peacemaker must not only salvage every sliver of light, but must also recognize the irredeemable obstacles to peace and eliminate them. And so these are the literal warriors with guns and uniforms protecting our physical security, as well as the boundary patrol on all fronts, the folks that call out abuse, or the watchdogs confronting anti-Semitism wherever it crops up, or even the religious zealots protecting the boundaries of Yiddishkeit. It's a true avoda. It's not a very popular one these days, but it's a true avoda, and it is contributing something absolutely necessary.
Wow, so interesting. So this is, I've never thought about this structure in this way. And I'm assuming that, is it true to say that every soul attribute, every person has a main soul root, but that they also have portions or sparks of each of the soul roots within them, right? Because everybody can be a leader, everybody can connect higher, everybody can give or protect.
Yes, that is exactly true, exactly true. And so sometimes it's hard to tell what our actual primary root is because, the secondary one might be very strong.
So far, pretty clear. But we'll see what else comes up to contradict.
Okay, so then Tiferet is, first of all, the sphere of Tiferet is the only sphere that's connected to every other sphere directly, except for Malchut, which it has to move through Yesod in order to get to Malchut.
So say a little more about that. Because it receives from Hesed and Gevurah, and then it goes down into Netzah and Hod.
It has these links. So there's a link. I don't know if it's illustrated in. Let me just see how this.
There are lines going from Tiferet to in every direction.
Yeah. So there should be, and usually, this doesn't have all 22 connected pathways there, but there's really from here to here, from Tiferet to Binah, and from Tiferet to Hokhmah is also a path, and so. Means that Tiferet is connected to every other sphere directly.
And Tiferet is the heart, correct? As its main seat in the body. So how could the heart directly connect, just for a quick example, to Hokhmah or Binah?
Well, it's interesting that there's the story, like in the 1800s, they were building the railroads in the U.S., and there was this man who was kind of working on the railroad chain gang, and one of the pegs like flew up and actually pierced his brain.
Wow.
And they were able to pull him out, and he healed, and he displayed all the same IQ that he had before, but his life fell apart. And they couldn't understand what happened. And then they realized that the part of his brain that was damaged was this part where we have all these ideas, our mind figures out all these options, and then we have to try them on and see how they feel on a heart level. Like, does this feel right? Does this feel not right? And that ability was the ability that was lost. And so his life fell apart. He was as smart as he was, but he couldn't function, really. His intellect was kind of useless without its connection to the heart. And to
everything was abstract. So the heart makes everything real.
Right, right. And let's tell which, like, does that feel right? Does it not feel right? And that's a very important piece of information in terms of, like, making decisions in life.
Doing anything, because without an actual pull from the heart, a yes or no, one way or another, do something with this, I guess we would just float. Nothing would ever happen.
Right.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, go ahead. So more about Tiferet.
Okay, so in the soul types, so the Tikkun Zohar associates Tiferet with Mare Torah, the teachers and luminaries of Torah. And as we know, Torah is our zip line. It connects us back to Sinai, to our revelatory past, and forward to our utopian messianic future. And that's really, that is the wonder of Torah. And really, I have to say, it's the awesome accomplishment of Rabbinic Judaism, that it's managed to formulate a system that has kept the faith community of Israel intact for millennia. It's a system that connects us to the same practices and rituals that our ancestors have been performing for millennia, but it's also a system that has a flexibility and adaptability that allows us to engage fully with the modern world and to even be trailblazers on that front. It's an amazing, amazing inheritance that we have, really.
Wow. Wait, so could you, as you're speaking, and I'm looking at this diagram, I'm feeling like, but this could be totally off. I've always thought of Tiferet as being the heart, and obviously it is, but is it also the stomach in some way? Is it connected in any way?
It's associated with the torso. The Tiferet is often associated with the torso.
Because that would be like that, what becomes you, you're describing the rabbinic tradition that takes the light of Sinai and brings it into systems and practices and knowledge units and that are basically integrate or reject, integrate or eliminate, or refine and expand, and on an ongoing basis through history. That seems really like the digestive system more than anything else.
I hear you, like it's metabolizing.
Yeah, metabolizing, exactly.
It's true. That makes sense. Yeah. So it seems like it's doing both of those. Like it does. It's the torso, so it's the heart and the digestive system.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're told that there's a written Torah that is fixed and final, and then there's the oral Torah, which, according to Rab Tzadok, is he defines it as the sum total of insights pressed from the hearts of Jews, striving to live their lives in accordance with the truths that they've absorbed at Sinai.
Wow.
So with that definition, not a second passes that doesn't leave that oral Torah enriched by some new insight discovered in that moment somewhere on the planet. And so in that sense, we all plug into the Torah at some level. And so the Tiferet connects to every one of the other sefirot, because whatever we're doing, we're serving the Torah, so to speak.
Which means that anyone who's listening right now and having a thought about this or an application, is adding to the complete metabolism of heaven, of God consciousness and God reality into the human experience.
That is true. That is exactly
It's
true.
unbelievable. This is really a meta map. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I thought so too. I was really struck by it. But the thing is, although we all have a chelik in the Torah, a portion in the Torah, this category of Marei Torah, luminaries of Torah, are the teachers and authorities, halachic and otherwise, of the Torah. But their distinguishing feature is not how they make a living, but that their primary relationship to Torah is lishma. Though they may teach, their teaching is secondary to their lishma relationship.
Lishma, explain.
So by lishma, I mean study for its own sake, because the Torah is the mind of God. The intimacy, according to Kabbalah, the intimacy of union, of zivug, of union, comes from, it actually happens on the level of da'at, of knowing. It comes from seeing and being seen, knowing and being known. In the Torah, knowing is a euphemism for sexuality, and Adam knew Chava and they were as one flesh. So studying Torah in order to just know Hashem, in order to understand Hashem's depths and will, that is an act of devotion, it's an act of love, and it's an act of union. And so that's what drives and characterizes the Ma'orei Torah, the luminaries of Torah. That's learning Lishma.
Wow.
Okay, so now we come to, these are a little bit more complicated, Netzah and Hod, that are called the Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Chozim, the seers. And so you're right. So Netzach and Hod correspond to prophecy and Ruach HaKodesh.
I don't even know the difference.
Right, and Ruach HaKodesh. So there are two modes of divine expression. From one perspective, prophecy is the more exalted devekut, for its word comes straight from Hashem. In the grip of prophecy, the seer's personality goes underground because its human shortcomings would distort the signal.
Wow.
And so only thus can the prophet rightly claim, Ko Amar Hashem, thus says God. So prophecy associates with Netzach and Ruach HaKodesh with Hod. And these two sphirot are the legs of the partsuf of this collective higher order being that's illustrated there. And unlike the arms, the legs need each other in order to do their thing, i.e. to walk. And so they very much function as partners, and especially now when the gates of prophecy are closed, these two, Nevuah and Ruach HaKodesh, are more like different sides of the same coin. In prophecy, the less of a mark the prophet leaves on the transmission, the better. The tool, and I think I'll define Ruach HaKodesh when we get to the next one. So the tool for cultivating this transparency of personality is meditation, really. In meditation, one lets go of thoughts and returns to focus. And each time one comes back to focus, one drops into a deeper level of soul. And so the goal is of meditation is to create a habit of accessing our pure, unself-conscious core in order to live life more and more from that place. A meditation practice ideally should cleanse our lens of personality from the narcissistic needs and ego defenses that distort our interpretations of reality. Because the more we see the world truly, the more chance we have to find the most spiritually productive option in the moment. So that's Netzach.
You said the gates of prophecy are closed. I know that people say that, but I also know that it says that prophecy will return. as we get closer to the Messianic era. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. And people usually throw out the baby with the bathwater when they say that, meaning that they assume that prophecy and Ruach HaKodesh is gone. But that's not how I understand it at all. That really Ruach HaKodesh, in some, there are Ramban and Rav Tzadok HaKohen agrees, that's how he presents things, is that Ruach HaKodesh is actually higher than prophecy.
Wow, interesting.
That Ruach HaKodesh is kind of, whereas in prophecy, the personality needs to kind of go underground. In Ruach HaKodesh, it's very much requires the active participation of the personality. That the more we have our curiosities, our interests, our questions, our passions, and we exert towards them. And that exertion is what creates the kli to pull down the Ruach HaKodesh, the divine inspiration. And so it's premised on us becoming more fully and actively ourselves. Like the more generic we are, the less Ruach HaKodesh is available. The more actualized we are in our uniqueness, the more Ruach HaKodesh is available, which is kind of the opposite of prophecy. In prophecy, the personality goes underground.
Wow, so it's like the difference, as I've learned it, between a nes, a miracle that suspends nature, and a nitla'ah, a pella, that actually changes the nature of nature. It's temporary, and one is permanent because a new structure has been created that is aligned with the higher order of things, the higher divine truth.
That makes sense. That's really interesting. I've never heard that before. Pella, you said?
Pella, yeah.
Interesting.
Nisim and Nitla'ot have that distinction.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so Hod, Chozim, are the seers, the masters of Ruach HaKodesh, and prayer, really. Like Netzach being meditation, and Chozim are Ruach HaKodesh being prayer. Hod associates with Aaron, who is the Kohen Gadol, or high priest. And the practice here really is prayer, which is the most powerful tool for refining will. The hardest thing about prayer is to know what to pray for. And that requires a kind of Ruach HaKodesh. Besides Aaron, besides being the Shaliach Tzibor, the prayer leader for the community, Aaron possessed an exceptional skill of consensus and peacemaking. The teaching is that Moshe brought down the Torah, couldn't kind of fudge a single word, and Aaron had to get everyone to accept it with a resounding Naseh v'nishma. And so he, kind of mentioned this, but didn't mention that necessarily, or whatever, in order for Shalom Bayit.
Wow.
So similarly, prayer is also a delicate negotiation between head and heart. That prayer is called avodah shebalev, the service of the heart, meaning that our words and our wills that we're expressing in our prayer must really be true to our heart. They must be heartfelt. And yet they must also be tempered and corrected by the wisdom of the head. Is this thing that I want? Is it really what will serve me? Is it really what my core wants? Is it really what I'm designed to do? In that sense, prayer is a kind of inner peacemaking between head and heart, and also between self and Hashem. And in the last summit, we talked about the mystery of Chashmal as the secret of potent and rectified prayer, which is how to go about this negotiation of head and heart in the prayer process.
It almost seems like, as you're speaking to it now, it seems like almost more than this and that, even though you're just talking about the Ruach HaKodesh process, but it seems like in and out, like everything that we desire ultimately has at its root a soul desire, but maybe we're too connected to the garment the modality through which we expect it to come through or want it to come through. So it would almost be like discarding it. This is just what's coming to me now. Tell me if it's, right, wrong, tweak it, whatever. But it feels like it's almost a process of discarding the way what we attach to our desires to, on behalf of getting more into the pure, unadulterated desire, which would be connected with our soul's purpose.
Right. But I'm not sure the pure, unadulterated desire, meaning without specifics, are you saying?
Or even if it's with specifics, let's say you want money, you're praying for money because you hate being impoverished, because it makes you feel ashamed of yourself, and because it makes you have to live in a house that's too small for your 7 kids, and you can't, you're driving an old car that doesn't get you where you need to go, and it demeans you. So you might be praying for a new car, but there's a reason why right now God is giving you a car that needs to go to the shop, or that has dance. But maybe the process of discarding would be like, what is it that I really want to experience, and why? I want to experience myself as a sovereign being. I want to feel the confidence of knowing that I don't need anything, and that my outside looks like my inside, and that I can move from place to place. That seems like a purer prayer. Like I can't see anything that would be wrong. That would be, because we are meant to fulfill, to fully ultimately express ourselves in a pure way. Yes, we're meant to fill our being, our living being, with the light of our deeper selves. Our mission. At least that's the way I look at it. So that's what I mean by going to you want to have more. You want to have more. I don't know. You want to be thinner because you want to feel confident. So feeling confident, why do you want to feel confident? Because you want to be able to connect with people and share your gifts and receive and spread light. Those are it doesn't take long to get to a pure level of desire, which my premise is that is always connected with your purpose. If you get, if you get to it.
That is really, I think that's deeply true. I don't know, it takes a certain kind of work that I don't know if everyone can do that, can get to the heart of things, but it's really true what you're saying.
We can talk. It's not as hard as it sounds. I have a pretty simple formula that seems to work.
Wow, that would be a wonderful thing to share, because I think that's a beautiful tikkun on prayer. Really.
Thank you. I'd love to.
Okay, so this path of prayer of Avodah Shebelev is about refining, aligning, asserting, and correcting will, so that our natural prayer and preference is to do what we're designed to do, which is exactly what Hashem is asking of us, and the only thing that will really ever make us happy in the end. So that's the work of prayer. Okay, so now we're coming down into Yesod, which is the sexual center, and by extension, our desire nature. The Hasidic and Kabbalistic commentaries always use the phrase Tzadik Yesod Olam, that the Tzadik is the Yesod of the world, which means literally the foundation of the world, but it is really using Yesod as in its Sephardic sense, as the sexual center. And so the idea being that the tzaddik is distinguished by his or her kind of rectified desire nature. And so the avoda of Yesod includes, I think in my mind, all the folks that are in 12-step programs like AA, SA, OA, NA. It's a very powerful avoda, and it includes all the people whose spiritual path focuses on transforming addictions, i.e. harnessing primal but wayward desires and directing them instead toward deepening their spiritual life and deveikud. It's an intensely difficult avoda, and it's profoundly transformative work. And really, most of the people don't know how ancient this struggle is. Do you know where addiction is first mentioned in the Torah?
Idol worship? Just guessing? I don't know. No?
With Adam, when Hashem confronts him and says, "Did you eat from this tree?" And he says, "The woman that you gave me, she gave it to me."
Right.
Va'ochel. and which we translate as I ate, but the Medrash says, Va'achalti ein kativ. Adam doesn't say, and I ate. Adam says, kan ella va'ochel, and I eat in the present. And so the Medrash says that Adam was saying, achalti va'ochel, I ate, and something is now changed me, and va'ochel, and I'm going to continue to eat. I'm not going to be able to stop.
What's he eating in
the tree of knowledge? Whatever that is, really. That's
the feeling of self, of an expanded self. Yes,
right, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So is there another way to look at the tzaddikim? Like, is it always wayward desire, like an active wayward desire? Could it ever be a suppression of desire? Like people who become apathetic or is that not really part of it?
Apathetic, you said?
Or resigned, or people who there are people in life who, if you work with people, you know that many times people don't know what they want, or they feel like maybe there's nothing they want, which is distressing to them.
Right. Yeah, that's an important point that you're making. I think that's a kind of, almost kind of spiritual castration in a certain way, that a person is like a child or a person is, every time they express their will, it's ignored or ridiculed or whatever. It creates a state of the person that is disconnected from their will, which is kind of will is extending yourself outward, and that is
right.
It's deeply damaging to the soul. Yeah.
What would be rectification? That would be then in this category of tzaddikim.
Yeah.
I guess of Yesod, but what would be, maybe you haven't thought about it, but if you have any insights into what would be the rectification for that, like the 12 steps, modifying, like harnessing the desires, fulfilling yourself in deeper ways might be part of the rectification of wayward desires, but what would be the rectification for a castration or a loss of will, disconnect from will?
Right. I think it would have to be a slow process of just cultivating prayer. Prayer is the kind of rectified expression of will, so to speak, of exploring. It's not so simple when someone is in that has this castrated will, for them to really work with the question, what do I want? What do I really, really, really want? But that, I do think, is the path. I don't think there's any other way to get there. Except
to keep asking themselves in a state of kind of prayer.
Yeah, and maybe with, someone helping them and kind of encouraging them and feedback, giving feedback. But it's a real avoda that.
It must be for each of these, actually, that there's a front side and a back side. There's a rectified version of everything, a balanced version of everything. Mm-hmm. But then it has to be that in every category. I'm just thinking there's a too much aspect and a too little aspect. But still the mission would be to rectify that, I would think.
Right.
We're meant to be something.
Yeah, that is very true. I didn't think about it in those terms. But that is definitely true. And in the Materia Medica of the homeopathic remedy, it does have those two columns of too much and too little of each sphera.
Even the Rosh Alpha Yisrael, the leaders, there can be a person who knows that they're here to be a leader and they just don't want to. Or they don't have they can't, or something, or they're leading by dominating and exploit. There's got to be an upside and a downside and a balance.
Right. That test of power is, I'm sure, affects the people of the Keter souls more than most, and that is really, there's a lot of, that's a teaching that is really up on our plate these days.
Right, but even I'm thinking like the whole idea of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses, that we're taught that he was the humblest person who ever lived, and yet he spoke to God face to face and didn't sweat. He walked into Pharaoh's inner chamber, albeit and confronted him in his throne room. So it seems like and it says that we each have a spark of Moshe, who's also the soul of Mashiach, right? So it seems like there must be that inner core. I'm just looking at the map, that there must be that inner core of each of, like we each have a soul root, a soul type that's connected with our soul mission. That would be our primary area of focus, would be our primary area of talent, and our primary area of struggle, I would think.
Well, it's interesting what you said. I thought you were going to say, and Moshe kept refusing to accept that position.
Also, I mean, the Lubavitcher Rebbe refused for a year. The Lubavitcher Rebbe refused for an entire year. He told people,
Really?
don't keep bothering me to be the Rebbe. I'm hiding. I'm leaving. No, it is something of, I mean, there's so many different ways to look at this, but I think we have in every, the Zelil Maseh, I think every one of these has a everything's inter-included, but it goes too far to the right side, it goes too far to the left side, it's too much, too little, too insecure, too overconfident, like everything has everything in it. And to find the perfect rectified point of your own mission, of your own part in this entire meta system would affect the whole.
I see. I have my work now. I have to do it explain that, but I think it's really important what you're saying.
There's a reason I keep wanting to hound you about this homeopathy, because I feel like this. I guess I feel like this is, whether I was quite aware of it or not. Now I'm more aware of it with this conversation. But yeah, like we're wounded. We're wounded in our mission. And part of our mission is to heal that wound, right? In the microcosm and in the macrocosm, and it's really the same holographic.
Right.
So to the degree that we can be aware of it, it's that I have learned that half of the cure to the illness is to understand what the illness is. So that's the self-identification, or with help of and to know even part of healing is, I find this all the time. Part of what starts people in a healing process is to realize that they're not fatally flawed. This is just the name of the game. Right. And this is where you fit, and this is the path, and these are the struggles, and you're not the only one, and this is what's great about, So I think it's very powerful. I mean, the implications of this are incredible.
And I think what you're saying is really important. I didn't say this, but it's deeply true, is that wherever our soul is rooted, that's where our flaw is, and that's where our work is. It is both of those, where our strengths are and where our flaw is. It's really the same thing. That's how we can kind of find our way to our root.
And given that this is a meta structure, like a body, like if somebody cuts their finger, God forbid, their brain is going to hurt. Their attention is going to go into that. It's like, and whatever it takes to heal comes from the immune system, which is also connected to the brain, and whatever else the immune system's a bit mysterious. Everything's everywhere. And so it seems like it would be really helpful for each of us to really, really own that in our own rectification, we are literally rectifying the entire system. And who says that we're not going to carry whatever it takes for me to rectify myself is not going to carry such a strong vibration that it's overtly going to affect everything, which really gives a holographic lens to the idea that, what the Rambam says, that we have to view the world as totally balanced between righteousness and the opposite, and one deed, word, or even thought can tip the scales toward Geulah.
Right. Beautiful. Right. It is so important to keep remembering that whatever we're doing, it's both self-serving and God-serving. Anything that's God-serving, good-serving, it's also self-serving.
Right.
And also anything that's truly self-serving is also good-serving and God-serving, if it's truly self-serving. And
Right. And to me, that's this is a kind of a trend in psychology, and what I call cutting-edge psychology, that looks to find the deeper root, of what's causing you to be a certain way, that's moving away from suppression most of the time into a deeper expression. Like you can suppress yourself and get a job done, to a certain degree, or you can express yourself temporarily, maybe even disrupt things, but ultimately that's the deeper rectification that brings all parts of you back online. It seems like that's part of the Geulah, that for us to realize that, to really start to see the holographic nature of our own reality and of this entire system, to be able to know that all parts of us are here by divine design. and that we don't have to stay the way we are, but we have what we need to to bring out that deeper Moshe within us, that deeper, Redeemer within us by our bright side and our dark side. They're both part of the same picture.
Right. I mean, it's exactly. I mean, it's so important to just remember the holographic nature of things, that there's a higher order unity, and we're just cells in this larger unity, or larger Adam, or larger Shekhinah, however you want to call it.
And the whole Shekhinah is also the whole larger Adam is also within each of ourselves.
Right.
It's both.
Right. Yeah.
The more you can actually see, to me, it seems like the more you can see the pieces of the puzzle, like you're helping us do right now, in such an amazing way, the more things move from belief to awareness, which also seems like part of the process.
Beautiful. Yes.
Theory to reality.
Right. Which brings us. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
No. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, tzaddikim is really. I know that we learned that the avoda, the divine service of the tzaddik, is to take darkness and to turn it into light. It's real transformation. So you just put that in a different context. That those who struggle the most are really on that level of potential. They're doing the work of the tzaddikim, the ultimate transformation work. Another message to everybody here listening, which I only feel so strongly about because I've had to give it to myself so many times, hard earned and still needed, that the more struggles you have, in my opinion, the more you're here with a special forces level soul, not just an infantry level soul, and can take you down if you don't really get acquainted with what it's really about. So tzaddikim are the righteous among us, and in this map, tzaddikim are those who struggle with the most darkness,
right,
and ultimately are meant to convert it to light.
Beautiful. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and the solution to what you call the wayward desire, I'm just thinking, it's springing up so much, like every truth that gets put onto the table. That those wayward desires are passion. And a person of a lot of passion can easily go in a direction that's ultimately not life-sustaining and not mission-enhancing. But a person with passion, once the passion is harnessed, it's like the temporary cure for too much passion is suppress it. But the deeper cure is go so deep into it that you understand its true purpose. Right. And then you don't have to struggle.
Right.
It just integrates.
Right. And that is, I do think, the work of the tzaddik, that tzaddikim Yesod Olam, tzaddik Yesod Olam, really. I mean, the Baal Shem Tov talks about how a person who's got a cold soul that doesn't struggle with passions, they do everything right, but they don't have a passionate relationship with Hashem, which is something profound that's missing. And that passion is a real resource of soul, even though it gives us a lot of trouble. It's really ultimately something that is precious and needs to be just raised and directed, which is not easy work, but it is.
No, it's not. But passion is kind of access to infinity in a certain sense, because if you just do everything right, so you do everything right, that's it. You know what you're going to do, you know what you're not going to do, this is your box, you're good at it, fine, and finish, But passion is a raw energy that really seems to be connected to something much more like infinity within a person. Like if you're passionate about something, is it ever enough? Not really, which is the case with addiction, but it's also, if it's harnessed, if it's brought back to its deeper root. So it's a passion for godliness. It's a passion for soul expression. It's a passion for light. It's a passion for life. It's a passion for love. It can be a passion in the most powerful ways that just it seems like it's alive. It's connected to the source, and it's much more, therefore got to be much more connected with Gevurah, because Gevurah is an infinite world that never ends. It's infinite life.
Right. And it's right. And the fact that it's unruly is part of its power, really.
Yeah.
Kind of redemptiveness. Yeah.
Right. The Lubavitcher Rebbe said that we have to bring Mashiach in a manner of the lights of Tohu in the vessels of Tikkun, which this is, we're talking about the vessels of Tikkun, but passion, the unlimited lights of the world, the chaotic primordial worlds can be very destructive when they're not harmonized. Mm-hmm. But once they're harmonized, they give infinite light, power, and movement to the entire system in a way that's amazing and divine. So it's not static. Life isn't static. We're not static. God's not static.
Right. Thank God. Yeah. That's what makes it interesting.
Right.
Okay, so that brings us to Malchut, which are the Malachim, the kings. And so Malchut is really its mastery, its kingship, including self-mastery. And the inner spiritual property, it's curious that the inner spiritual property of Malchut, i.e. kingship, is shiflut, which is surrender and lowliness. And so it seems like a paradox, but really that's exactly what self-mastery entails. It requires us to actually surrender to our deepest and most authentic truth, which might not be so welcomed, at least initially, if it deviates from what's popular and normative. And
what makes you feel comfortable.
Right. And so, exploring the question, what am I designed to do, is simultaneously an act of self-assertion and self-surrender. It's like, I need to be me, which is self-assertion, and yet I can't change my design. I can only make the best of it, which requires a certain kind of surrender to who I am, who I've been designed to be. And so the avoda of Malchut is the striving for authentic self. We have to or must actualize our full potential by negotiating all the contrary tugs that arise from within and from without, incorporating them in right measure, and all the while staying true to ourself, but a self that is constantly changing, evolving, deepening, and shedding old ways. So in some sense, all the other soul specialties must eventually lead to mastery, like all paths lead to not Rome, but to Malchut, to mastery. And because everyone has a Dalet Amot, a hill, so to speak, over which they are the king. And so that's Malchut.
Would it be correct, you think, to say that, to reverse it also, to say that in order to, I'm surely seeing this with the tzaddik Yesod Olam level, that you can't really do that kind of work if you don't have that paradoxical combination of empowerment and determination, of authority over yourself, and yet a great humbleness and surrender. It seems like, again, Malchut's like everything else. Malchut runs through the whole system and is required. Like it's required to do it. It's almost like the beginning and the end, right? Doesn't it seem like it's like the requirement? I mean, not that anything here isn't the beginning and the end, but yeah, but with that paradox of, I know you talk a lot about paradox. It seems like all greater truth is in the paradox.
Right.
But who do we have to be? Like I try, I haven't found the perfect way to explain this yet, but when I teach, it seems so obvious that in order to change anything, you have to be simultaneously inside of it and outside of it. So there has to be a part of you that can disconnect by that. Yeah. So in order to change, let's say you're angry and you want to work on the anger beyond suppression, even suppression for us to a certain degree, but it's, to suppress, there has to be part of you that says, okay, I'm angry, but, I can control myself. That's one level. But to really transform something, which rectification really is true transformation. Prayer, like you said, is true transformation. Gevurah is true transformation. Where two opposites, heaven and earth, light and darkness, like death and life, everything becomes one united greater entity. So to the degree that you can step into a higher level of self and a higher level of meaning higher level of connection will match the degree to which you can take those things that are disrupting your personality and work with them. Addiction's anything, it's not, again, like it pays to say again, it's not an easy process. It's a life work. This is what we're here for.
Right.
But if you can't get out of yourself, if you think I'm angry or I'm sad or I'm useless or I'm broken or you have very little likelihood to be able to change yourself because you're subject to that identity. But if you can step out and say, I'm part of a larger system, these are things that God is giving me that are difficult, yes, that are painful, yes, but for a purpose. There's a higher purpose here. I'm in the special forces, or it wouldn't be so hard. Let me find a way to step out of it and just watch. It starts with observing. I mean, the first time I learned to observe my emotions and the feeling that they created in my body, it was life-changing. I'm like, wait, if I didn't believe that I could, if I believed that I could, like we're afraid of our feelings, I realized then that I and everybody else were afraid to feel things. So what if I wasn't afraid to feel whatever I was going to feel? Then I could just feel it. And now what happened? Now I'm not in it. I'm somewhere else feeling it, which means I've stepped into a larger version of myself. I've gone down deeper into my soul, and now I'm bringing that into my consciousness to help work with another part of myself. And it seems like there are many levels of that. And the deepest level to which we can reach would equal the largest amount of transformation, the largest amount of expansion of new light that can come into our system and harmonize those things that are in conflict within ourselves. Because really if there's like you say, a zip line, I call it a through line sometimes, if everything is on behalf of our one core purpose and the one core purpose, then everything needs to have a place in this larger system. But I can't find the place if I'm stuck in a reaction to something or in a belief about something. I need to at least be able to step aside and observe that belief. And at the same time, holding side by side that awareness of the larger system and the larger purpose. And even doing that, as I'm sure you know, already begins to harmonize things. It changes things. It literally changes your emotions. It changes your experience, changes your awareness. It makes you smarter.
Right.
There are all kinds of things that happen. The more you can, that's what meditation, I guess, really does, and prayer does, as you described it. But the more mastery we have of that process, which is Malchut, the more tenacity we have, which would be Netzah, the more confidence, the more will, the more humility we have in connection to the higher purpose, which would be Hod. The more we recognize it as ours and are willing to metabolize it Tiferet. Everything's going backwards through the system, creating this meta rectification.
Right.
And affecting everything.
And it seems like you're saying that if you can get behind the emotion and kind of get to the source of it, which is like kind of touching, it seems like we're connected. There's this hub and we're all spokes on this hub. I mean, if we can bring our own personal tikkun into the level of hub, then it shoots out through the sparks and everyone else benefits from it. Then it really becomes a collective tikkun and not just
yes. And you know what? It's like that's easily provable because it's not. It used to be that these things like were on the realm of belief, like or lately, in recent, like let's say decades, people feel that's true somehow. They feel that there's a oneness. But here, look at us. You did to whatever rectification you've done, that you've been able to articulate, whether in writing or in classes or in work with people or in your remedies, whatever it is, now is available literally, overtly for anybody. It is already shooting out to the world, to the degree that people are affected by the Gevurah summit as everything else that they absorb in the world. And then integrate, some of it and share it. That's already your overt direct effect on the entire world. Because we really are all super connected right now, not just spiritually and energetically, which is also true. We feel things more. We feel, I think more and more, we feel what's going on in the world. We feel each other's feelings. We feel the feelings of people, collective groups that are far away. It's causing a lot of disruption because the barriers between the physical world is becoming more and more spiritualized and transparent to its source. But even overtly, even in technology, I mean, earth mirrors heaven, and that's clearly happening.
Right. Really, truly, really, truly.
And it puts everybody in the center also. Anybody who wants to give, anybody who wants to share, right in the center.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're, like I might do a Facebook Live, and if it's an odd time, I might not have too many people listening, but then later on I'll look and, quite a few people might have seen the video later, like where that's also taking us beyond space, and it's beyond space and beyond time already. We're crossing that edge.
That's true. That is really true.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So did you just find this? What did you just learn about this that got you excited and brought it to us about this system?
Well, it was over Hanukkah, and I was looking at, because Hanukkah revolves around the sphere of Hod, and so I was kind of looking at what as resources in order to be able to teach about Hod, and so I happened upon this teaching from the Tikkun Zohar and became intrigued by it.
And what did the teaching say specifically? I mean, we've gone through it. We've been discussing it, but what did it actually say?
In terms of about Hod?
Yeah, and about this whole structure.
It didn't really say anything more about it. It just kind of gave over this. It didn't really add to it. It just kind of gave over the fact that every soul is connected to one or the other sphera, and given what sphera your soul is connected to, that will determine what your spiritual resources are and what your mission is, and as we also added, which is also true, and also what your flaw is that you're going to have to kind of work through and work out.
It's interesting also because the Torah says that in these times, the big players from the top level, from the Keter level, the Rashi Al-Bais, Yisrael, or whatever, the leaders will be reincarnated, like the enemies of the Jewish people will be reincarnated. And it's almost like we're all here to face ourselves. We're all for this final rectification showdown, to face ourselves and to see what's really going on with each other. And well, maybe you could say something also about like you are what you hate. Like how would that work? Like when we see things in the world right now that really disturb us, everybody's disturbed by something right now, and somebody.
Right. Well, so the "You Are What You Hate" teaching by the Kamarna Rebbe is based on the Baal Shem Tov's teaching that kind of in the Shvirat HaKelim, that it's not just the universe that shattered, but really our soul shattered, the Torah shattered, everything shattered. And so we come into the world with only part of our soul inside of our body, actually, and part of our soul is still shattered pieces of it strewn throughout the world. And Hashem guides us moment by moment from coordinate A to coordinate B, because there's a piece of ourself out there, a spark of our soul that needs to be kind of brought up, raised and integrated. And so that's all good and well when the spark is in a lovely place and we can...
Glass of wine.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Party.
Also, a spark is a sliver, is a kind of light, and light is always associated with consciousness in Kabbalah. So to raise a spark is to really just integrate some increment of consciousness, of truth, of wisdom, or whatever, even though it's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily come through the head. There's a lot of information that our body is absorbing as we move through the world. It's kind of knocking against this and scraping against that, and it learns how the world is built and kind of what works and what doesn't, even though we're not thinking it through at all. So not every spark is integrated through our mind. But so the Baal Shem, so again, so it's all good and well when the spark is in a glass of wine or a piece of chocolate, but if it's but it's also true that our enemies, and I'm defining enemy as really anyone that disturbs our peace. It doesn't, there can be beloved enemies and there can be mortal enemies, and all points in between. But an enemy is always an upside down soulmate, says the Baal Shem Tov, meaning that there is always a spark of ourselves. One of the sparks of ourselves is trapped inside that individual or that situation or whatever. And And so they're an upside down soulmate, meaning that our souls are connected because there's a piece of ourself inside them, and more often than not, a piece of them inside us that needs to be kind of traded. And so the work, I mean, so the Baal Shem Tov or the Kamarna Rebbe in You Are What You Hate doesn't go so much into the strategy of how to deal with that particular situation, because that is so different for each type of enemy in each moment, each situation. But the one kind of generic principle that applies to all is that is to pray for your enemy's spiritual awakening and tshuva. That meaning that just like we pray for our own, like really there's nothing that I want more than spiritual awakening and to bring my life into line with spiritual law and Hashem's will and to do what I'm designed to do. I know that's the only thing that's going to make me happy and really be good serving, God serving as well. And so in the same way that is my prayer for myself, so the Kamarna Rebbe or Baal Shem Tov says that one should bring one's enemy into that prayer. And he says that if you pray for your enemy's spiritual awakening and tshuva, that it will either be potent to bring them into a tshuva process, bring them into closeness to Hashem and closeness to truth. Or if they're not ready for that, if they're not kind of on board for that, then it will kind of touch the soul or part of ourselves inside that enemy and extract it. And if that enemy is really on the level of Amalek, which is the only time when there really is nothing redeemable there, then that prayer, that sincere prayer for the enemy's spiritual awakening and tshuva, which is our prayer for ourselves, love your neighbor as yourself, pray for them, all the things that you want for yourself. But if that enemy is really in the category of Amalek, then the prayer for their tshuva and spiritual awakening will actually accelerate their demise. That's what he says. This is so important, especially because at all times, but especially because the world is so polarized right now. Mm-hmm.
So I just want to clarify a couple things. Number one, it sounds like you're saying that through the broken shards or the broken spark. How did you put it? The broken pieces of yourself are spread out in different things and different people. Right. So you could say then that you're something from you as you're hating somebody might actually be sustaining the very thing that giving life to the thing that you hate about them.
Right. That is true. That is true.
And it seems like the prayer for their tshuva and well-being would be like, okay, I hate what's going on here, but I would be happy to have them see the truth and be my friend, rather than they should just die. They should just, which is, yes, very interesting. Which is like saying something. It's very interesting. I have the map of this meta system in my head as I'm talking. Like if we really accept this premise that everything has a role to play and I'm connected to everything and everything's connected to everything, then we can't reject anything, or it remains. And this is the other question: is this correct? That the things that the idea of redeeming the sparks is bringing something from our unconsciousness into our consciousness?
Yes, absolutely. That's what a spark, a shattered spark is. It's a piece of ourself that we don't recognize as ourself. It seems like it's the enemy, or it seems like it's whatever.
But it's autoimmune. Yeah, this is autoimmune. Mm-hmm. I mean, autoimmune is so prevalent now. So there's so many autoimmune disorders, but it seems to exist where we don't recognize something as ourselves.
Wow, that is really mind blowing.
Yeah, isn't it autoimmune disorder? Autoimmune disorder is either thinking something's an enemy that is not, so you hyper, the immune system gets hyper and starts to destroy healthy tissue, right? Or the opposite, or I think it's also the opposite, that the system doesn't recognize an enemy because you think it's you. That's like That's like the castrated will, where a person feels like they think they're their own enemy. They think that they're their own, they have to reject themselves and therefore they can't, right? So either way.
Right. Because I think the second one you said is more like cancer, really. That's where, because it marks itself as if it's part of the body, so the body doesn't go for it.
Yeah.
The first one is the autoimmune. That's really interesting. That is really interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And it seems to happen on a personal level. Like each of us has a personal kind of level of autoimmune disorder, which is a virus in our system that we think we don't recognize as a virus. We can't distinguish between what's me and what's my real self and what's something attacking me. Right. And then we have, to a degree, all of us to some degree or other. And then we have the same thing with our families, our communities, our cultures, other cultures, the culture that we're connected to. It's just really, it's so interesting.
Right.
So basically you're saying that anything that there are parts of us that we are not conscious of and we are not harmonized with, that therefore are offline, that can be causing us harm. Right. And that the more we accept, this is just my languaging of it, please tell me if it's right or wrong, or whatever you want to do with it. It seems that the more we can accept that we are everywhere. When I told you I want to talk about the quantum nature of the soul, that's kind of what I meant. That we are everywhere and we're in everything and everything is in us. So the more we're conscious of everything as if it's ours, the more we withdraw the destructive energy and create a constructive healing energy out of it. Does that make sense? Is that correct?
I would say that there's a piece, it's not us, but there's a piece of us there that is participating in that is, kind of participating in that enemy's way or in that situation or whatever. It's not,
some of my unconsciousness is playing itself out as
exactly
XYZ.
Right, that's a beautiful way to say it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But in the deepest sense, it must be us, because ultimately everything's God, right? So at the core, if we could step into who and what we truly are at our very inner core, it could be possible to say that, even though I don't know, maybe we're not ready for that yet. Wow, that's I'm trying to think of a couple of people that are, in politics that I really hate. I need to, have you actually done work on this yourself? Like, did you have any difficult relationships and what happened? Could you describe it all?
Yeah, and I get letters from people all the time that have been, kind of read the book and tried it, experimented with it and had really, kind of interesting turnabouts. One person even was, like in South Africa, her house was was being robbed and their life was in danger. And she kind of remembered this idea and started praying for the assailant and
to do tshuva, to recognize what's the exact prayer?
Yeah. And he somehow, just took the money and left instead of really harming them, which is what he was about to do. So, yeah. My personal stories are not as dramatic as that, but that's the most dramatic story I've heard in terms of someone really kind of right there on the spot, kind of working with the tool.
How long did it take you to have to, in your own case, to come to a place of almost hating someone and wishing them harm, maybe to coming to peace?
Right. It's still, I have to say, it's not my first reflex. I have that, antagonistic, and then I have to talk myself into it. I have to remind myself that this is, that's, that the truest truth is the teaching of you are what you hate, and begin to work with it in another mode. It's still not yet in my reflexes.
But have you turned around your feelings in certain relationships through this process? And how long did that typically take if you really don't like someone?
Right. Well, turning around, it depends on how how much suffering this person is causing me or whatever. But the turning around of my own feelings doesn't take so long. Like once I remind myself of what the truth is and I just begin to pray along those lines, it does, it shifts. But it doesn't necessarily shift the relational dynamic necessarily right away. That can take a while, and like in one situation, it hasn't happened yet. It's still, but I don't have. But it really has changed. I don't have that kind of energy and agitation and negativity in myself about them. It's really not there.
I wonder, because it says, it says in Torah, "Kamayim panim lepanim kein leva adam ela adam." Are you familiar with this expression? I don't know if it's just it's but not. I'm sure probably the source is somewhere else. I know it from the Tanya. So the idea being that if the face that you reflected, that you look, that is reflected by the water, the face you show to the water is reflected back to you, and it's the same thing applies to the heart of man. That what you feel about somebody else, they'll ultimately feel about you. I guess it could go in either direction. But based on that, I'm just wondering, I'm just saying that for the audience, but I'm just wondering if a relationship would always inevitably change given what you've said and given that, one way or another. And if it hasn't, if that's the case, if that is a truth, then it has to be that eventually the relationship dynamic would change. And therefore, I would think that if it hasn't, maybe there's still something unconscious in the person who's praying, but that they haven't yet owned, and therefore that's still reflected. Like it's still holding the tension of the relationship. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That could definitely be. Yeah.
I wonder what that would be. Like I'm thinking, if you pray for someone to do tshuva in a way that could be like self-righteous, but like, oh, you should do tshuva.
But that's the thing is that. Because what makes it not self-righteous is that you're praying for it's what you're praying for yourself. I'm praying for my own spiritual awakening, for my own tshuva.
You said that, yeah.
And so it's just a question of bringing the other into that feeling.
Oh my gosh, this is so amazing because, there's this very understandable stream within Torah Jews that of people that do not want our enemies to go down in flames,
right?
Because they've tortured us in such horrendous ways for millennia, and yet based on what you're saying, that could actually what?
So it's self-defeating,
right? It's perpetuating the very thing. Yikes.
And there's parts of us there, if they go down in flames, there's parts of us that are going down in flames. I mean, it's a win-win. Like if we kind of humiliate them and defeat them, then they're just looking for the moment where they'll be able to get us, where we're not looking and they can stab us in the back again. It's not the end of the story. Whereas if they do tshuva, then they win, Hashem wins, and we win. Nobody gets away with anything. Hashem is perfectly just. Anyone who says that Hashem is a patron, he lets things slide, so they're a heretic. So everyone's going to pay their dues and all that. But if they do tshuva, it's a win-win all around. We don't have anyone breathing down our necks and trying to stab us in the back. Hashem is always, you think I want to punish the Russia? I want them to do tshuva.
Right.
And for them, it's good for them. So everyone wins.
Because God's light and God's truth is the light and the truth and should shine everywhere. And it's like, even for those people, I'm thinking, if someone truly does tshuva and they truly see what they have caused, the harm they've caused, that could be the worst punishment in the universe.
Right.
And then they're motivated to rectify it as best they can, which would, create the Yisrael Haba Min Choshech. It's, the transformation has that passion to it that, that like pulling back the string on the bow shoots the arrow forward. Like when you really feel devastated by the harm that you did, you will make up for it with an incredible amount of energy.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Very intense, all very intense. So like light and darkness. Go ahead.
Also, priest unto the, we're the priest unto the nations. That's what the Torah describes us in. And that means that we have to kind of help our flock to, just like we're doing tshuva, we have to model it, and we have to hope that everyone else will kind of follow suit. And that's.
Yes. Yeah, it's very deep. It's very, very, very deep. I mean, I'm not bad at this on a personal level, but like when I think about like I said, the politics, I'm going to try this and see. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Which, the corollary, the flip side of all of this is that we have an investment in keeping, we actually have a psychological investment in sustaining the negativity that we say we hate so that we can make it wrong and be right.
Right, exactly.
We don't want people to change because then they'd be like, how could they get away with that? No. Everybody has to see how bad they. Yeah, that's all, which is ego. That's an ego comes from tohu, which is an unrectified, unconscious, out of alignment, destructive energy that needs to be put.
Very small-minded, like a short-sighted understanding of things.
Right.
It's not going to serve us. It's not going to serve us.
Which just also speaks to the truth that is coming out of belief into awareness, at least for me, that we really, everything influences everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty empowering if you think about it, if you really accept it and embrace it.
Right.
Okay. What was the lesson? What? Sorry?
The lesson is a teaching about how everything that we do, how it kind of radiates through the entire universe and affects everything.
And comes back to us.
Right.
The ultimate inner wiring of karma.
Right.
Everybody in a certain sense gets to be God. Like like everybody's the center and can influence. So, that's on the conscious level. On the unconscious level, on the flip side, we can all pull the whole world down.
Right.
To the degree that we're willing to be unconscious,
right.
And stuck. Wow. But not really, because Hashem is involved and we're moving into Gevurah more and more. Okay, I want to talk about your remedies. Mm-hmm. and everything else. I'm just going to, if you were on at the beginning, that Sarah Yehudit is offering a 10% savings on everything in her store. We'll have a link. We have a link under her picture so that you can get the discount automatically. It'll be a coupon to take off.
The code word, should I say it, is Gevurah Summit 2.
Gevurah Summit 2 with a 2 or with an Arabic numeral 2.
Number 2.
Yeah, we'll put that. With that, I'll put that in the follow-up email, and it's I think it's under Sarah Yehudit's picture, but we'll check. If not, then we'll put it there. Okay, so tell us what that is. Like, what can people get? And especially, I want to know about the remedies. And in the light of this incredible discussion, how would you see? Do you work with people one-to-one, or do you give them a map that they can diagnose themselves? How many remedies are there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So first of all, on the website, there are basically books for sale and the correspondence school subscriptions, and then the homeopathic remedy. Those are the main things for sale. And the homeopathic remedy is based on most people don't know that there's a tradition of homeopathy in Judaism, starting from how did Moshe deal with the golden calf? He took the calf itself, the symbol of impurity or the actual impurity, and ground it to powder and sprinkled it in water and had everyone drink it. And also in the at Marah, when the waters were bitter, it says that Moshe wanted to throw in a honey to sweeten the waters, and Hashem said, no. Human beings cure one thing with its opposite. This is the Mechilta who said, human beings cure one thing with the opposite, but I, Hashem, cure like with like. That's my preferred method of healing.
Wow.
So theoretically, if one, like kind of from a Kabbalistic perspective, we understand that Adam and Chava, the Talmud actually says, not even Kabbalah, that Adam and Chava span from heaven to earth and one end of the world to the other, that they contain the entirety of creation, of reality within them. And so we were all kind of there and present. in Gan Eden as Adam, and we all gave consensus to the decision to eat, and we all suffered the shattering consequences of it. And so we all come into the world with a fracture in our soul that we inherit from that primordial time. And theoretically, if we knew what that tree of knowledge was, it would be possible to create a homeopathic remedy that would work at that very, very deep fracture of soul. And so in our tradition, there are 9 different opinions about it. And so the homeopathic remedy is built from these 9 different theories about what was the tree of knowledge. And then the Zohar says, for sure it was this, for sure it was this, for sure it was that. And then it says...
Like grapes, like what were some of them? What were a few of them, just so people know?
So all the Sheva meaning...
The 7 kinds, the 7 plants that grow in Israel.
Grapes, wheat, barley, pomegranate. Yeah, all those. Plus etrog. And plus, Rav Tzadok Kohen says that it wasn't this or that, this tree or that tree. It was a consciousness of eating, that once they entered into that consciousness, everything they ate was tree of knowledge. And the consciousness is the Nachash consciousness, Najahaje, which is the Egyptian cobra. That is the, oops, well, let me just turn this on. And so that's the 9 different ingredients. And then.
So did you actually potentize a cobra?
Yes, I didn't do it myself. I mean, I got cobra venom from the Tennessee Reptile Zoo.
Wow.
From not just any cobra, it's the Egyptian cobra, Najahaje it's called, which is the one that's on the Paro's
oh
head.
My gosh. Oh.
Yeah. So I took it to a laboratory in Ramat Gan that creates homeopathic remedies out of mother tinctures. So that's what I did. And then Rav Tzadok Kohen said that, so he said, so the Zohar said, and all of them are true. So the 10th is called the multi-tincture, which is a combination of all of them. And
could these correspond to the personality, the soul root types that you just
yes, they do
with us?
So you might already connects all of those ingredients to different sphirot. So each one of them corresponds to one or another of the sphirot, and so it creates a whole materia medica. So
would it be better for? I know you're still, and I want you to continue, but would it theoretically be better for a person to, let's say if they were from the tzaddikim or from the whatever, the Nevi'im, would it be better for them to take the remedy that corresponds to that particular type, or to take the multi-general remedy, or how would that work?
Well, it depends. Like generally, I kind of see how people answer the question. It's not really questions. It's like, which do you identify with? Which of these statements is true about you? And once that's clear, then it becomes clear whether they should take the one that is kind of more identified with their soul type, or whether they should kind of work from another angle and kind of move towards that or whatever. Yeah.
And so you had these potentized, and now so they're basically 10 remedies made in your golden thread system?
Yes.
And the explanation, I know there's a booklet, I probably still have it, even though I haven't looked at it for years. I don't know, I'm looking around, I don't know where I put it.
This is an old box, but this is a box of the remedy.
So you sell them as a kit?
I can, or one by one. This is
and do you?
This is what they look like one by one. And this is the booklet that gives information about it, and it has a.
So if somebody's interested, which I suspect people will be, how would they just go to the store and order the book, or they would make an appointment with you, or how do you like to work? I know you're very busy.
There's a lot of information on the Golden Thread website, which you can link to through the Still Small Voice website.
Okay.
Then to be in touch, and I think, yeah.
Are you ready for this?
I don't know.
I really want this. I'm like very invested. No, you know what? The truth is, if this is actually, in these times when things are so important and more people are spiritually searching, and this is the core of what separated ourselves, our true self from our personality self, and ourselves from each other, and ourselves from God, and ourselves from our mission. Mm-hmm. If this can help, then it's like, healing is like the powerful connection of the soul to the body. The more mm-hmm. powerfully the soul's revealed in the body, the more wellness. This in my opinion, must be made available. Mm-hmm. Without trying to pressure you more than is comfortable for you. No, but seriously, maybe I'm sure that there could be a way to make it happen more easily. Anyway, okay, so that or the books, I can say, speaking to the listeners, that Sarah Yehudit's books are miyuchad. They're really amazing. They're life transforming. She has some smaller books and larger books. This is not intellectual information, although it's very deeply mind opening. It's really transformational information. And when I learned about the grabbing instinct, when mm-hmm. the book about the eating as tikkun, mm-hmm. that's life changing. But just to know that there's something in us that comes from the eating from the tree of knowledge that causes us to want to hoard, to feel like there's never enough. Mm-hmm. One of these distinctions, one of these awarenesses could move through the system and start upgrading everything. Mm-hmm. So I highly recommend the Golden Thread remedy system and the books and anything that you can get your hands on and your head into, or into your mouth, into your head from Sarah Yehudit's work is totally worth it. And that said, I just want to thank you so much. It's really amazing. It's really amazing to talk to you. It's just so special.
The pleasure,
appreciate it.
Really. I got a lot from this conversation. I learned a lot, and there were some insights that came through you that I really.
I'm so glad to hear it. Well, certainly coming in this direction. So I'm really happy if it also goes in that direction. Anyway, that's also what happens when we connect to ourselves. We connect to our passion and to our soul root. Then we have more passion. Then we bring out our new insights, like the Ma'orei Torah. And like everything literally starts to upgrade everything. It's just, in an exponential way. So thanks for being a living illustration of that and for all your work.
Thank you so much.
Many blessings. Okay, take care. Till next time. Hopefully soon.
Blessings.
Bye.